Hello, hello, hello. All right. Can somebody drop in chat and confirm that you guys can hear me? Por favor. Thank you, Tamika. Thank you, Crystal. Happy Tuesday. It is the 21st of April, and we are starting right on time. Appreciate you guys being with us. Um, this is the free Hot Topic session for our GSD team. As you guys know, we have a paid track where you get deeper dives, you get more content, more information, and then we do these free ones. Again, in hopes that we're giving you guys the skills and abilities and methods to be more effective and to be blunt, to get more shit done, right? At the end of the day, we're all working really, really hard. We've got all kinds of pulls on our time. We've got all kinds of demands. And it's really, really easy to get wrapped up in the whirlwind of the day versus the ability to create and maintain effectiveness, because the way we lead ourselves, the way we lead others, the way we communicate. So appreciate you guys taking some time over lunch. Hopefully you're having something yummy. I am actually coming to you from Chicago, so I'm an hour behind you. It is 11 o'clock my time. I'm going to be having lunch after. So the hopefully all you guys have read the book GSD Rules. Doc and I wrote it. Doc is with a customer right now, and Jerry is on a well-deserved and much-earned vacation. So I'm flying solo. I'll try not to be too boring. The way this works, if you want to chat or ask a question, if you raise your hand, I can tag you in, or you can just drop it into the chat thread. Maybe there's a point of clarification. Maybe there's an example you want to share. Maybe there's a question about, I didn't explain it well. All of those things are welcome. So let's get into it. The framework of GSD has 4 components. Number 1 is clarity. What are we trying to do? Why does it matter? How are we going to measure it? How do we know if we're winning or losing? And clarity is one of those words that's really easy to say, and it gets bantered about quite a bit. But at the end of the day, there is a massive amount of work in what we would call true clarity, which is, if I went and asked 10 people in my organization, what are we trying to do? Would I get the same answer 10 times? Or would I get 10 versions of their own kind of answer? Actually, Jerry, Doc, and I were with a customer last week, and we posed that question. And unfortunately, very commonly, each person was answering clarity based on their job within the company, right? So if I'm an accounts payable, I'm going to talk about clarity as being, well, I'm worried about accounts payable. I got to get the accounts payable entered in, and we got to get them paid by this time. And somebody else was in purchasing, and they talked about purchasing KPIs, and somebody else was in shipping, and they talked about shipping. And that's appropriate at the tactical level, meaning I want people focused on what they're doing, what they're responsible for to deliver for the organization. However, at the bigger picture, why does this company exist? What are we trying to accomplish as a company? That should lead me to a very similar, if not identical, answer from everyone. Part number 2 is teamwork. How do we fit together? Who's responsible for what? How do we communicate? Do we have a culture of accountability? Do we have a culture of teamwork, right? Are there silos involved, and people don't collaborate effectively well? Number 3 is discipline. And that is not discipline in writing people up and how do you do the 3-step process if you need to discipline someone? That is process and operational discipline, meaning, do you have a process? Do you consistently follow the process? Or when the stuff gets hard, the crap hits the fan, so to speak, do you throw your process out the window with the ever-present statement of we'll come back to it and clean it up later? Because later never comes. We never go back and clean it up. And now we've got these little piles of mess behind us that we've got to try to deal with and clean up. And then the final one is energy. And I don't want to make an obtuse statement and say always or, all the time, stuff like that. Leadership energy is grossly missing in most organizations. And when I say missing, it is the way you carry yourself. It's how you interact. It's how you respond or react to situations, right? If I react, I'm going to fly off the handle. If I respond, I'm going to pause, catch my breath, think about it, and make sure I don't make an already stressful situation worse. So it's clarity, teamwork, discipline, and energy. And that's how we frame up all of these hot topic discussions. So today's topic, how do you manage up without sucking up? I assume most people have been around somebody that you might consider to be a suck up kind of person. These folks, in my mind, they're always trying to look good in front of the boss. They're always trying to give the right answer, or if the boss says something, they're like, yeah, that's exactly right, boss. And it's kind of a ruse, right? It's a little frustrating. It's like, all right, are you just trying to look good, or are you actually trying to do good? Because those may be two very different answers. If you haven't worked around someone who you would consider a suck up, I would consider myself pretty lucky, because there are quite a few of them around. So why does it hurt, right? So if you say, well, that doesn't sound bad, or you're trying to make the boss look good, and you're trying to reaffirm the boss and validate the boss and always be in good graces. My opinion is that it creates a bit of suspicion, maybe. Like, all right, if I know Beau is always trying to suck up to the boss and make himself look in a certain way, is that real? Is that is that a facade that he's putting on, or is it a legitimate thing? And then if I, Beau, who you view me as a suck up, come to talk to you, in the back of your mind, you're probably going, all right, is whatever I tell him, is he going to go tell the boss? Can I be open and transparent? Can I be honest? And so there's an undermining effect that happens if someone creates this personification of being a quote unquote suck up kind of person. And as with all things, we want to focus on the we, not the me. And I think that's another kind of thing that bleeds over if someone is behaving in that way. Is this all about you? All right, are you just trying to make yourself look good because you want the boss to think of you a certain way, or you want the boss to feel a certain way about you, or are you legitimately trying to make things better? And those undermining currents are really what holds back cultures from our experience, right? Because if I've got complete trust in someone, if my team is locked in, we can be open, we can be transparent, we can be clear, we can get to the darn point, we will move faster than our competitors. And decisions that might take a less trusting organization 2 or 3 days to manage through, we might be able to make in an hour, or even in 10, 15 minutes, because we can get to the point. We trust each other. We're not putting on airs. We're not trying to make ourselves look good in front of this person or that person. We're just trying to get stuff done. And that really is the formation or the thinking behind this GSD system that we've built. So if that's a decent backdrop, if I can see some thumbs up, if there's any questions about what we mean by being a suck up versus not being a suck up, let me know. And I think to start with, I think managing up, the most single important thing you can do is to perform. What is your responsibility? Do you do your things on time? Do you do them to a high level of quality? Do you do them consistently? That sets the stage for managing up, right? So I have team members, and I've had team members in the past that were rock solid, high performing people. They did what they said they would do. They would go above and beyond. They would do extra digging into a problem. They would look for ways to make things better that weren't even part of the original discussion. And because of that, the level of trust that I put into them, right? If they needed to tell me I was screwing up, or, hey, Beau, I don't think you're thinking about this the right way, those conversations happened because there was that two-way trust. And it was based on the fact that those people who were my direct reports were already performing at a higher level. And they were doing the right thing, and they were consistent, and they gave a crap about what was happening. They were really trying to move things forward. So recognize, as you're listening to this conversation and hopefully participating. I don't want to do an hour-long monologue, although I probably can. Recognize that this isn't about, again, the just the perspective of how something looks. This is based on getting the results that you're paid to get. I don't know anybody that's working for a hobby. I think we're all working to take care of our families and our kids and parents and cars and houses and all of the stuff that we, that we have responsibilities for. So your best starting point is to make sure, point number one, you're doing your job to a very high level. Okay. So if no questions, let's jump into it. Right. So as I mentioned, laying this out in the GSD framework, part one is really around clarity. And in this case, it is aligning with your boss on what are the outcomes that we're trying to accomplish, making sure that you understand the mission. And when I say mission, it's not a military phrase, but like, what are we trying to accomplish? My team, my department, my location, my shift, whatever it is, what are we trying to do? And I want to own that, right? I can't expect my boss to recognize what I'm not getting. I can't ask him or her to make sure they spend enough time with me. I have to dig and think and look at how everything's moving, how people interact, what's our cadence, what's our culture, how do we communicate, all of those things, to align on what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And along with that, managing up is really about removing ambiguity, right? And when I say ambiguity, I don't just mean like KPI kind of stuff, but what we're seeing right now in the workforce is this wild transformation. AI is everywhere. Every time I open my computer, something is popping up. You want AI to look at this? Can AI help you with that? Do you want AI to write your question? And because of that, it's really, really easy to get distracted. It's really, really easy to get a little bit off target, because in my mind, I think I'm asking the right questions and I'm trying to do the right thing. But if I don't ground them in the mission that we're after, which is aligning on the objectives and outcomes that we're after, it's really easy to get a little lost. So removing ambiguity is part one. What are we trying to do? Why does it matter? Right? If you get those two questions answered at a very high level, you're definitely on the right path. Number two, work with your boss and your team to translate those goals into some kind of KPI or critical to quality, like CTQ, or critical to safety. Turn them into something that takes away the personality and the emotion, right? If you've ever worked with a high emotional person where they kind of react instantly and they kind of overflow with emotion and everything gets lost in translation, it's very, very easy to get distracted by that, versus if I can clearly measure something and talk about data, I can usually remove a lot of the emotion that's tied up into whatever the circumstances are. Um, every business that I'm aware of has stress. Every business that I'm aware of has frustrations. Every business that I'm aware of has challenges. Every business that I'm aware of has competition. And so if all of those things are ramping up our emotions, the thing that can tamper that down is data, right? So, somebody might say, but I can tell you're really excited about this current situation that's right in front of us. The data says this happens every week. We shouldn't be upset and excited about it. We still need to fix it, but it's not like this is the first time this happened. And I assume you guys are living in similar situations where you've dealt with the same symptoms over and over and over. It's like Groundhog Day. We had this problem 2 weeks ago with this customer. Now the same kind of situations popped up with this customer. Guess what? In 2 weeks or next week, the similar situation is going to pop up with another customer, right? Because our system isn't capable. So aligning on the objectives, trying to or working to convert those things into measures, KPIs, something that you can put data behind and pull the emotion back out of it. Because at the end of the day, guys, most of us, and if there is anybody here saving lives, please don't take this. Most of us are not saving lives, right? Most of us are not preventing war. Most of us are trying to get a product out the door, or trying to provide a service, or trying to support our customers in a way that is not really life or death. So getting too far wrapped around the axle, it just doesn't make good sense. It's not emotionally healthy. So how do you do that? One of the best questions that I like to use when I'm working for someone and somebody that works for me is, hey, what does success look like in the next 30, 60, 90 days? And if you're willing to accept that as a challenge and you're going to go do it, recognize that you may not have a really good answer to that question. There may not be a good answer that comes back to that question. It may be, well, we got to get this order out, or we've got to get this new website launched, or we got to, right? There may be something there, but it also may be a little bit awkward. And it may just be a whole bunch of word salad that comes at you, and there's 14 things in there, and there's 7 objectives and 14 goals and 13 projects. Like, all right, woof. That's a good indicator that organizationally we don't have a whole lot of clarity on what it is that we're trying to do. From the not being the suck up perspective, however, what you're trying to do is align with your boss. You're not saying, oh, boss, those are all great ideas. And yeah, we've got time to do 17 projects. Yeah, all of those things make sense. That's the suck up part. What you're trying to do is say, hey, boss, that sounds like a lot of stuff that we're trying to get done in the next 60 days. Do we have project plans? Do we have owners? Help me understand how this rhythm is going to work. If you want to get all those things done in the next 60 days, how's it going to work? So what you're doing is not sucking up. What you're doing is saying, hey, boss, I understand that we're laying out the mission and we're trying to get these things done. Let's be smart about how we're going about it. Most of the time, the clarity problems will fall into 2 or 3 buckets. One of them is it just hasn't been articulated. Right? We've got all of these ideas. Every idea is a good idea. So we just put it on top of the other pile of crap that we talked about last week and 2 weeks ago that's not getting done. Now we got more stuff that's not getting done, and the ideas are still coming. A lot of times we see companies that have conflicting priorities, right? The boss has told me to go left, and he's told Keith to go right. Right? And now we don't know it. We don't recognize it because Keith and I may or may not be talking a lot, but now we're going against each other, not intentionally, but we're actually hurting the organization because we haven't aligned on it. And then that question leads you to a whole bunch of good stuff. And how thrilled would you be if you went in and asked your boss, hey, what does success look like in the next 30, 60, and 90 days? And he or she lays it out. 30 days we need to be here, 60 days we need to be there, 90 days we need to be here. And Beau, here's how you fit into this. How cool would that meeting be? How awesome would you feel walking out of that meeting versus what my experience will show most of the time you don't get that. What you're trying to do is position yourself as a force multiplier, right? I have worked with some of the highest performing people that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. Some of them just always figure out how to get it done. Doesn't matter what you throw at them, they'll just figure it out. Even those people eventually run out of hours. And so the shift from being a doer to being a leader is what we call a force multiplier. In my career, when I was able to shift from kind of a contributor to a leader of people, and I'm able to help them get clear priorities, help them understand the objectives, help them overcome challenges, remove the roadblocks for them, encourage them when they need to, kick them in the butt when I needed to, I become a force multiplier, because if I've got 5 people and I'm coaching 5 people to be more effective, the amount of work and success that we can enjoy, goes up a whole lot faster than me just working more hours, or, hey, I'll work Saturday mornings too, or I'll stay after work. So you're not trying to suck up and please your boss. You're trying to say, hey, I want to make the team more effective. Help me know what the mission is. Help me understand it so I can articulate it, so we can move forward. The key shift here is, instead of thinking, how do they like me, is how do I make us more successful? And again, I don't know, how you guys feel about that. I know as humans, we tend to worry about what people think about us and how they feel about us and do they like us and all of that stuff. In business, and I think this is appropriate, needs to be, how effective is the person, right? I may not want to have a beer with the guy. I may not want to, hang out and talk shop with this person randomly, but if they're getting the stuff done, that's the right teammate that I want to have. Questions so far? Comments, thoughts, anything? Nothing yet. I must be doing an awesome job of explaining all this, so I'm going to keep going. Part number 2, build a high trust operating rhythm. Okay? At the foundation of every good relationship that you have, good being the operative word, it is built on trust. And this is not just, I trust that Beau is going to get what he said done. It is trust in that Beau's not going to hurt me. He's not going to stab me in the back. He's going to do what he says. He's not going to take credit for stuff he didn't do. He will take the blame when he screws up, right? So it's that level of trust that's deeper than just, hey, Beau said he'd do the report by Tuesday. He'll get the report done. So you have to establish a strong working trust as the foundation for the teamwork component, right? Great managers, great leaders reduce the cognitive load of their people. And by that, if I'm distracted because I don't trust Joe, Mary, and Susie over in that department over, right? You guys all heard the word they didn't do it. They didn't follow up. They didn't call me back. That is a distraction. So now not only am I thinking about solving the problem, I'm also thinking about, how do I cover my butt, because they aren't going to do their part and they potentially are going to hurt me. So the trust foundation on that reduces a lot of that burden from your teammates, from yourselves, if you don't have it. Number 2, establish a cadence. We've got a communication white paper. If anybody wants it, if you'll ping it in there, this is how we communicate. This is how we teach our customers to communicate. There should be some sort of daily quick huddle. Okay, that is not a problem solving session. That is not to sit around and complain about how bad things are, any of that stuff. That is, what's the schedule look like today? Who's here? Anybody missing? Any safety issues we need to be aware of? Hey, let's go have an awesome day, right? Things may come up in that little huddle meeting that you need to circle around or follow up with to make sure that they don't fester. But that's not a 3-hour sit in your chair. That's usually stand up. If you've got a communication board to talk about your team or what needs to happen, that's even better. So that's a daily cadence, right? Weekly, you should be meeting with your group, a little bit deeper dive. Guys, how's the week going? What's in front of us? Has anything come up? Has anything changed? Did we, is there a mechanical problem? Is there an equipment problem? Is there a logistics problem? That's probably an hour, right? And again, you can do it over lunch, just like these sessions here, so people don't say, oh, we're just going to have another stupid meeting. The importance is that you're staying in a rhythm with the people who you're trying to collaborate with, you're trying to work with, they're depending on you, you're depending on them. And then monthly, we recommend doing some sort of deep dive. You might call that a staff meeting. You're going to review your KPIs, you're going to review your projects, you're going to review what's upcoming, you're going to review what was accomplished. And that's the place where you use your KPIs more effectively. Some of you guys hopefully were on our meeting about using KPIs more effectively. KPIs should not be punishment. They should be feedback. And that feedback is very simply, is what we're doing working? Because if it's not, we need to change something, right? If I keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, that kind of makes me a dipstick. If what I'm doing currently is not producing the outcome that I want, then I need to change something on the input. And it also will expose, are the inputs actually being done? Which leads into the accountability conversation, right? So this communication rhythm that you're trying to set up makes it almost impossible for you to miss deadlines longer than a week or two. So if me and Camille and Wendy and Adrian are working on a project, and this project we think is going to take us 6 weeks to do, if we meet every week and talk about, hey, Beau, did you get your stuff done? Camille, where are you? Wendy, where are you? Adrian, where are you? Every week, right? By the time 6 weeks gets here, we are already going to know where we are. It's not going to be the end of the project. Some of you guys went to college or high school, you did group projects, and that one knucklehead never did his part, and you didn't find out till the end. That's what we're trying to prevent. And if you think back to the clarity piece, what's the mission? Hopefully what you're working on is very important to the organization. And so this weekly communication rhythm will prevent that drift from happening. So turn that into a conversation with your boss, right? Because again, we're talking about leading up without sucking up, managing upwards without sucking up. If I meet with my boss once a week, or every other week is probably okay, it's really, really going to be challenging for me to get off the reservation, right? It's going to be hard for me to wander off into the Netherlands over here if I'm aligning every week. Hey, boss, here's what we're working on. Here's what I've learned. We ran into this challenge. Here's what we did. We've got these 2 questions. I've thought about options. Here's what I think are the options. Here's the one I recommend. He or she's going to say, all right, keep going, or hey, let's choose this other option, or whatever it is. The point is the frequency of that alignment effort will prevent you and save you a lot of headache in just missing information because you don't talk frequently enough. My experience when I have employees that want to have weekly or bi-weekly meetings with me, it is awesome. I'm a fan of it. Yes, sometimes it's hard. Yes, sometimes they're late at night. Yes, sometimes they're short. All of those things, yes. But at the end of the day, I know that person wants to be engaged, and I know that I'm trying hard, and he or she sees that I'm trying hard to stay in alignment with them. So that supports the trust thing, hopefully that makes sense. The other thing while you're doing this, using KPIs and dashboards wherever possible. So, in God we trust, everybody else bring data, right? Let's get the emotion out of it. What does the data tell us is happening? You're not always going to have perfect data. You can manually collect data. You can use a tick mark on a flipboard if you want to. Come in with something that says, hey, here's what we're seeing with our eyeballs, or here's what the machine is telling us, or here's what the computer software is telling us. Those things keep you on track. And every effective leader that I have ever worked with likes data, period. Next thing in teamwork, think about your customers, and this is not just the external customers that's buying your service. This is your internal customers. So in this group, there are a lot of people that are supporting other people within their organization. If you view whomever is downstream from you as your customer, right, it is very, very important for you to spend time with them. Ask them, hey, how are we doing as a supplier to you, man? How can I make your life easier? What are we doing that makes your team's job more difficult? Okay. So as you hopefully as you're thinking about that, that's not a suck up kind of question, right? That is a servant leader kind of question that says, I know that I am supporting your team by providing you something. Am I doing a good job? And how can we do it better? How can I be a better customer or a better supplier for you? How can I make your life easier? How can I make your team more effective with you? What are we doing that's making things harder for you? The power that comes out of those conversations is unbelievable. And here's a little hack or secret for you. By virtue of asking that question, you have already crossed a huge threshold for them, right? You may not get answers. You may get answers you don't like. You may get stuff you can't solve, all of those things. By virtue of you saying, hey, teammate, I know that you rely on us. What are we doing that makes things hard for you? It's massive. The reward of that conversation is just massive. And the next part about teamwork is bring solutions, not just problems. I've worked in organizations, and this is the way we operate inside our team. If you've got a problem, you need to come with at least two options of solutions, right? And so if somebody says, hey, Beau, this sucks and there's nothing we can do about it, it doesn't help. It's frustrating. You guys may have experienced some of that as well, versus somebody says, hey, Beau, we've got this problem. We discovered it a couple of weeks ago. We've been thinking about it. We've come up with a couple of options. Here's the three options that we've talked about: option A, option B, option C. And because of these reasons, X, Y, and Z, we think option B is the right one to go. Does that sound right to you? Wow. Is that the person you want to work with? Is that the person you want on your team that you're going to try to help grow to have more responsibility and more opportunities to do more things and all of that? Yes, 100 times out of 100. Yes, that's the person that I'm going to try to make sure he or she gets to where he or she wants to go. And the rule here is right. No surprises, no drama, no posturing, just clean, clear, consistent communication. Clean, clear, consistent communication. So we'll call that the 4 C's: clean, clear, consistent communication. That's what we're after for teamwork. Okay. Point number 3, managing up without sucking up, right? Lead with data, not emotion. We talked a little bit about taking the emotional sting out of things. So if I show up and I'm talking to my boss and I'm lamenting something that's going on and I don't have any data to support my claim, number 1, my boss may or may not agree with my assessment. Number 2, my boss may or may not have just had another meeting with someone who brought data that is refuting what I'm now trying to express. So my credibility, goes from wherever it is to 2 or 3 clicks down. Opinions matter. In Six Sigma, when we're using data, what we always say is you want your data to confirm your hunch. And I'll tell you, in 25 years of doing Lean Six Sigma type projects with people, I can probably name 1 or 2 where our hunch was just wrong, right? Wasn't always perfect, but the other times, and I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of projects we've done, there's only been 1 or 2 where we really, really didn't understand the problem. So we assumed it was this, but the data said it was that. And what we did in both cases was to go back and regrind our hunches, talk to other people. Hey, what do you see? What do you think? Does this make sense? Is this how you're seeing this situation? And then here's what the data says. Let's merge these 2 together. So when you're using data, and data is our friend, we always want to, right, confirm our hunch with the data. And if it doesn't, then keep digging, because either your hunch is way off or the data is way off, one of the two. A great way to talk about operational discipline is current state, root cause, options, recommendation. So, hey, current state, we're having a lot of downtime on machine X. We've traced the root causes being to poor preventive maintenance activities, right? So we've got two options. One, we can hire the OEM to come in and do PMs for us. Two, we can set up a more robust system for our internal people to do it. Our recommendation is that we use our own people, and we develop some accountability and reward system for them doing the PMs when they're supposed to, versus letting them lapse and miss. So current state, root cause, options, and then a recommendation. That is the way that you guide the conversation through. And again, when you have data and you talk about, here's the situation, data, here's the root causes, data, here's the option, data, here's the suggestion, I can get to a decision pretty quick, right? Now, if we're talking about a super complicated, super complex problem, it may take a little bit longer. But by and large, if somebody presents it in that format and they've got data supporting it, why wouldn't I say yes? Right? Why wouldn't I say, hey, let's go with your recommendation? Awesome. Thank you for doing all that work. Thank you for diagnosing the problem. Thank you for dissecting the data. Thank you for bringing me options. Thank you for making your recommendation. How can I help you get that done? That's beautiful. That is effectiveness 101 right there. That is going to make an organization that's very, very difficult to compete with. I try not to put too much Six Sigma stuff in these things, guys, because I don't know if y'all are all green belts. If you're not green belts, we have that option for you. We can get you into our green belt class. But there's something called the Deming cycle, W. Edwards Deming, one of the original quality guys, and it's called plan, do, check, act, or the PDCA cycle, as we like to say, because it sounds funny. What are you trying to do? Create the plan, implement the plan, which is do, check the feedback. Did what we do affect it? And then act. So if what I did affected it and worked on it and solved my problem, a high five, a shake hands, pat each other on the back, let's keep boogieing. If on my check it didn't fix it, I've got to repeat, right? I've got to go, my act now becomes restart at planning. Hey, we thought we had this thing fixed. We were going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, we did X, Y, and Z, and it didn't fix the problem. Or, maybe it fixed 10% of the problem. So we've got more work to do. The point I'm trying to impress upon you is think in structured formats, especially when you're trying to manage up or manage across or manage down. The more structure you bring to the conversations, the more effective those conversations will be. And that leads to operational discipline, right? So if everybody in Tammy's company, and I'm just picking up people who are here on the screen, right? If Tammy's company all agreed to use the GSD system, clarity, teamwork, discipline, energy, that's the way everything framed up, how much more effective would Tammy's company be? And I'm not, please don't misunderstand, guys. I'm not lobbying that, like self-promoting. That's not the point. It could be the Deming cycle, plan, do, check, act. It could be the 5 whys of root cause analysis. Pick a framework, get everybody in the organization to understand that framework, and things will speed up like it'll make your head spin. Because if I ran a plant again, I was a plant manager for a few years, loved it, challenging, fun, all that stuff. If I were doing that again, I would teach everybody in the organization these 4 steps: clarity, teamwork, discipline, energy. So if I want to know how the third shift is going to run, 4 questions. If I want to know how the new location is going to be opened up and we're going to move into, 4 questions. We're buying a piece of capital equipment, 4 questions, right? If everyone is speaking the same language, whatever that language is, your velocity will 10x from where it is. And I want you to think about promotability. right? So we talk a lot about bench strength. Do I have the next man up? Something's going wrong. We got to replace, somebody quits, somebody won a lottery, whatever happens. Do I have the next person up? If I have an organization that everyone knows, understands, and speaks the same language, next man up becomes a non-factor. It's the same four questions, right? You're just asking different people about different problems, but it's the same four questions. The power that that gives a culture to move fast and effectively is just mind-boggling. So one other thing on operational discipline, right? So we're on step 3 of the GSD system, operational discipline. Push back respectfully with logic, not emotion. We are emotional creatures. We're tired. We're stressed. We've got too many demands on our time. All of those things, yes, yes, and yes. But if somebody says something and I take it personally, I can make a little mess, a big mess very quickly, right? And so years and years of practice, and I'm certainly no expert at this. I still have a lot of fall downs on this. I still get sucked into the moment. But if I'm able to pause and say, okay, rather than saying, well, that's not the way I see it, what are you talking about? If I say, all right, how did you get to that conclusion? Or what's making you say that? Because I was saying X and now you're saying Y. What's causing you to say that? If I can gently but firmly have that conversation around, I don't understand what you're saying versus you're wrong, I'm right, the effectiveness of our conversation will go through the roof. That leads to operational discipline because we agreed we were going to do it this way. We're doing it this way. Is it producing the right results? Yes or no? If it's not, we need to fix the inputs. If it is, high five, keep moving, let's keep going. Your your power move is to disagree without being disagreeable, right? I can respectfully disagree with someone without coming across like a jerk. And I can also hopefully point back to my data and say, hey, Crystal, I hear what you're saying. Here's what I'm seeing in the data. Are you seeing something different in this data set? Because here's what I'm looking at. What do you see when you look at this data? Or, Crystal, do you have data that's different than mine? My data could be wrong. It could be out of date. It could be from a bad source, right? I'm going to assume no ownership and ego over whatever data set I'm looking at. I really want to maintain my relationship with Crystal in this example, stay on page with her and say, hey, I don't understand where you're coming from. Can you help connect these dots for me? Last one, energy. When we talk about energy, what we want is a group of people that give a shit about each other and they're coming in to win. We want people who feel responsible for the results, right? I can't tell you how many conversations I've had in my career where people get locked into doing the task without recognizing if the task is working, right? There's a giant gap between, well, I did what you told me to do. I sent him the email, or I wrote the paper, or I finished the project, or I cut the PO. And no concern, awareness, or ownership of if it worked, right? What I want is a group of people that all feel the ownership. If we're winning, it's because we're all winning. And if we're losing, which means if one of us is losing, we're all losing. You can't, if you think about a football game, the offense can't win if the defense loses, right? The defense can't win if the offense loses. So this idea that we have to share the ownership of the results. We need to celebrate the wins. We need to dissect the losses, not with blame, not with anger, not with punitive nature. What happened and why did we miss that? How did we screw up that customer situation that badly? And the magic question there is what in our process broke down that allowed this to happen? It's not, Rick, what'd you do, man? Rick, why didn't you get that stuff done, dude? This is your fault. None of that. Hey, Rick, man, I noticed this problem. Can you help me look at our process to see where our process failed to deliver the result that we wanted for that customer? Now Rick's standing beside me, right? Me and Rick are side by side looking at this problem versus this problem being in between me and Rick, and we're yelling at each other. because we're upset and frustrated. So the energy piece, how do I carry myself? How do I respond? Am I consistent? Are my people watching me walk around so they know when they can talk to me based on how furrowed my brow is or how fast I'm walking or that kind of stuff? It is wildly unhealthy. So your energy, especially if you're in a manager / leadership position right now, your people are watching you, whether you know it or not, whether you pay attention to it or not, whether you're aware of it or not, they are. And if you carry yourself consistently every day, right? I show up. If I don't have a smile on my face, I'm at least not frowning. I say good morning. I engage. I try to talk to them. I try to make time for them. I try to, keep the energy up because I know they're going to reflect the energy that I give them. So if I come in irritated, grumpy, and pissed off, probably not going to have a great day, and they're probably going to be going, all right, I got to stay away from Beau. Where's he at now? I gotta stay away from hide from him. Not fun, not good. Um, the other things about energy, visibility matters, right? So you folks who work in an office, avoid the temptation of coming in and just sitting down at your desk and only getting up to go to the bathroom or to get a snack or whatever, right? You got to move around a little bit. You got to talk to your coworkers, talk to your suppliers, talk to your downstream customers, internal or external. You've got to be intentional about being visible, right? I want my people to know I'm here. If I can help, man, I'm available. Grab me, talk to me, come find me. I'll come find you. But it has to be an intentional effort. Being proactive is another important thing, right? So if you're looking at your environment, whatever that environment is, manufacturing plant, warehouse, office, whatever, what are the things that are going to come up? What is a situation that happened with a customer last week that could happen with this customer this week? How do you get in front of those things? How do you rally your team to say, hey guys, look, we had a fall down last week with the Acme company. And now we're dealing with JoJo's House of Horrors over here. I don't want that same situation. So let's spend 5 minutes, right? Let's talk about what happened last week with Acme. How do we make sure that didn't happen this week? And I'm not blaming. I'm not irritated. I'm not pissed off. It's just like, hey guys, remember we just went through that pain last week. How do we prevent it this week? Those types of things show your team and your boss, which we're trying to manage up, that you're thinking about and anticipating what may be coming at your organization. How do you get in front of it? How do you prevent from repeating the same errors over and over? And how do you move forward in a way that says we're getting smarter as we go, right? It's okay to create mistakes. It's okay to have mistakes. It's less okay to have the same mistakes over and over, right? And what we see with a lot of companies that we work with is we end up reacting and treating the symptoms of the problem. We don't, the companies don't take the time, and sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it is a lot of stinking work to dig into what's causing this problem. Let's stop treating the symptom. I always use the analogy, if I have a headache every day and I'm taking aspirin every day, eventually I probably want to go to the doctor and say, why do I have a headache every day? Because I'm just treating the symptom. Eventually, it could be something much worse, and I'm just not getting it. Communicate wins in terms of business impact, not effort, right? Hey, man, let's celebrate, guys. We did this, we did that, we overcame this, we moved the needle from here to there. We moved on-time delivery from 92% to 94%. We, not in terms of, well, I called a meeting and I laid out the process and I identified all of the opportunities and I showed the team what they needed to do, right? That's kind of that suck up language that we're trying to avoid. It's always we, and we're always talking about impact, not effort, right? What was the result of what we did? And then stay grounded, right? Confidence beats charisma all the time. I can walk around like I'm, God's gift to the world, or I can walk around confident like, hey, man, we've solved a lot of problems. Our team is strong. We're capable. We've solved stuff harder than this before. We'll be fine. Let's get through this. That will always be charisma, because eventually charisma will fade when something, collapses, versus humility, where it's like, ugh, man, I thought we had that one licked, but it came back and got us. Let's keep working on it. So that is managing up without sucking up. A couple of other key takeaway points. Managing up is not political. It's operational excellence at a higher level. It's really culture-based in my mind. I can walk around and act like I'm the icing on the cake, but that's not really going to help. The results should show, go all the way back to the clarity point at the beginning. What are we trying to do? Why does it matter? Right? If I'm operating effectively, which includes managing up, by the way, because sometimes your boss is maybe a little challenging to work with, right? The results are going to show here based on what we said we were trying to do and why it mattered. Right. So we always, again, back to the data, it should show up on the scoreboard, man. I appreciate that you worked really, really hard, but we lost the football game. Okay. So we've got to do better. If you do this right, your boss will see you as low maintenance, high reliability, and promotion ready, which is for, again, I don't want to make assumptions about anybody, but most of us who are working in larger organizations are trying to pursue a career. They're trying to grow. They're trying to become more, make more money, whatever those things are. Put yourself in the position where your boss will recognize that and give you the opportunity when it shows up. So anybody have any questions, feel free to email me. I will type my email in the chat there. And for those of you on the paid session track, our next session is May the 5th. It will be a 3-hour session with all three of us, me, Doc, and Jerry on site. We're going to be talking about driving efficiency. So it's 2 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern. If you want information on that, feel free to shoot me a note, an email. I'm happy to share it with you and let you learn more about it. Otherwise, thank you guys very much for being here. Have an awesome rest of your week, and we will see you soon.